Okay, we're live. I still gotta pull it up though on this other screen. Obviously, it has been a long time. Yeah, honestly, or obviously it's been a minute. I did a 72-hour fast last week. No food, no distractions, no electronics, no nothing, no talking for 72 hours. And yeah, it was a pretty interesting experience. And a lot more than that has just, I don't know. My motivations have kind of shifted. And anyway, it's been a while since we were reading, and but I still, like, obviously we're not going to be able to finish the Book of Mormon by the end of the summer, but that's not going to stop me from reading the whole thing live. And I thought about going back through all of the titles and like changing the titles so that it's not like the Book of Mormon in one summer, but I'm probably not going to do that because I don't care. So let's we better do a little recap. Abinadi, we just read. We're at the tail end of Abinadi's story. Zeniff brought his people up to the Lamanites and basically got conned into establishing his people near the Lamanites, and then the Lamanites basically just put him in bondage and started taxing the crap out of him. And Zeniff was a pretty decent guy, actually, but then his son, Noah, becomes king, and he is not a decent guy. Noah and his priests do all sorts of abominable things, mainly the many wives and concubines, and then they tax the people even more, which, by the way, like, again, run the numbers. These people, this is like severe bondage that we're talking about in the Book of Mormon, and it was being taxed by the Lamanites 50% of what they had, and then Noah stacked on another 20% to go to him. We got like I called it a 50% federal tax and a 20% state tax. Not to say that that's necessarily the case today, but I don't know. I think it's closer than we might think. So then Abinadi shows up, and he's just like this random dude that he goes to the king, and the priests who have the priesthood, as we'll find out when we hear more about Alma's story. But these were the leaders of the church, and they had many wives and concubines, and Abinadi comes in and basically tells them, you're doing the wrong thing. And that was the unique thing about these guys' case, was that they were like, no, we're following the scriptures. We're doing what the scriptures say. We are keeping the commandments of God. We are keeping the law of Moses. And Abinadi, that's when he, pops off, and he's like, no. He's like, you sure, but you clearly don't understand what the law is even for. And you think that you might be reading your scriptures, but you clearly don't understand them at all, which, like, begs the question, I think a lot of people read the scriptures, and they probably read consistently, and a lot of people read them, but do we understand them? Is, how good is our reading comprehension rather than just our reading? So they obviously call him a madman. Who's Abinadi? Just some random guy that shows up to the king and his priests and tells them that they're not doing what God commands them, tells the priests that they're not being priestly. They're like, yeah, he's just out of his mind. But once again, instead of just dismissing him as a crazy guy and just kicking him out, they're like, we need to kill him. Which I don't believe people do unless there's a great element of truth that they feel behind whatever is being preached. So, and I will just lastly mention that the big thing that ruffled everyone's feathers was Abinadi's doctrine of the Savior, of Jesus Christ, and how the law of Moses literally does nothing for people. The actions, the law is dead, and it's to point to Jesus Christ, and he talks a lot more about Jesus Christ and how he's the Father and the Son and all these things. And that's when they're like, okay, buddy, you gotta go. So chapter 17. Alma believes and writes the words of Abinadi. Abinadi suffers death by fire. He prophesies disease and death by fire upon his murderers. And now it came to pass that when Abinadi had finished these sayings, that the king commanded that the priests should take him and cause that he should be put to death. But there was one among them, just one, whose name was Alma. And he also being a descendant of Nephi, he also being a descendant of Nephi, and he was a young man, young priest, which again, that's another thing that I feel like, dude, picture that. Like you've got the priests, all 12 of the, or 12, I don't know how many there were, but you've got the priests, and it's the young guy, it's the rookie, it's the guy that it's the priest that doesn't know anything, who's like, dude, he's actually right. And he was a young man, and he believed the words which Abinadi had spoken, for he knew concerning the iniquity which Abinadi had testified against them. Therefore, he began to plead with the king that he would not be angry with Abinadi, but suffer that he might depart in peace. So he could have just written down his stuff, which he ended up doing, but he actually attempted to stand up to the king himself and defend Abinadi. He was not silent. Verse 3, but the king was more wroth, and caused that Alma should be cast out from among them, and sent his servants after him, that they might slay him. Don't just kick him out, but kill him. But he fled from before them, and hid himself, that they found him not. And he, being concealed for many days, did write all the words which Abinadi had spoken, which is what a task that would have been. And it came to pass that the king caused that his guards should surround Abinadi and take him, and they bound him and cast him into prison. Oh, and by the way, I mentioned this a while ago, but Alma's the reason, dude. Alma's the reason that we even have this story in the way that we have it. I posed this question a couple streams ago, but that was like, how did we get this record of Abinadi coming into King Noah? Surely King Noah wasn't the one that recorded this and was like, yeah, we were terrible, and this guy told us to repent and we didn't listen. And no, it was Alma who knew, and he went and recorded the whole thing, and that's why we have the record of it. That's why it's written in this perspective. And it came to pass that the king caused that his guards should surround Abinadi and take him, and they bound him and cast him into prison. So not dead yet. Verse 6, and after 3 days, having counseled with his priests, he caused that he should again be brought before him. And he said unto him, Abinadi, we have found an accusation against thee, and thou art worthy of death. Okay, so why are we being accused of things? Why is death the penalty here? Let's see. Verse 8, for thou hast said that God himself should come down among the children of men. And now for this cause thou shalt be put to death, unless thou wilt recall all the words which thou hast spoken evil concerning me and my people. So he's being put to death for heresy because he said that God himself should come down among the children of men, and they do not believe that. They don't understand how Jesus Christ is God, or that Jesus Christ will even come down among his people. Verse 9, now Abinadi said unto him, I say unto you, I will not recall the words which I have spoken unto you concerning this people, for they are true. And that ye may know of their surety, I have suffered myself that I have fallen into your hands. The reason I'm even here should be a testament as to the truthfulness of what I'm saying. Yea, and I will suffer even until death. And I will not recall my words, and they shall stand as a testimony against you. And if ye slay me, ye will shed innocent blood. And this shall also stand as a testimony against you at the last day. And now King Noah was about to release him. He felt the truth behind that. It's crazy, dude. It's like Abinadi, crazy guy, crazy man, he's crazy, let's kill him, until finally it's about to actually happen. And then King Noah's like, you know what, dude, I actually am kind of nervous about it. Now King Noah is about to release him, for he feared his word, for he feared that the judgments of God would come upon him. And what finally turns the table? What tips it over? But the priests lifted up their voices against him and began to accuse him, saying, he has reviled the king. Therefore the king was stirred up in anger against him, and he delivered him up that he might be slain. And it came to pass that they took him and bound him and scourged his skin with faggots, yea, even unto death. And now when the flames began to scorch him, he cried unto them, saying, behold, even as ye have done unto me, so shall it come to pass that thy seed shall cause that many shall suffer the pains that I do suffer, even the pains of death by fire, and this because they believe in the salvation of the Lord their God, which is crazy. Spoiler alert, that's exactly what happens. Particular prophecy there. It shall come to pass that thy seed, your children, will cause that thy seed shall cause that many shall suffer the pains that I do suffer. They will, let's see, even as ye have done unto me, so shall it come to pass that thy seed shall cause that many shall suffer the pains that I do suffer. Wait, do they put people to death? Is it the Nephites burning people? I'm pretty sure this came to pass that those rulers who are the remnant of the children of Amulon caused that they should be put to death. Let's see. And it came to pass that those rulers...
You just need to keep reading, because verse 18 talks about them being hunted, and then ye shall suffer as I suffer.
I know, but I'm talking about two different things.
Oh, I thought you were just looking for the prophecy of them dying in the same manner.
Yeah, they die, which they do. Like King Noah and Amulon's priests, or like Amulon and the priests suffer death by fire. But the prophecy is also fulfilled when like Alma and Amulek watch all those people burn.
Yeah.
That's a fulfillment of this prophecy, and I'm trying to figure out who was burning who, because he words it like Amulon's, the priest's children are the ones that are actually putting people to death rather than the ones dying. Came to pass that those rulers who were the remnant of the children of Amulon caused that they should be put to death. Yeah. Yea, all those that believed in these things. Now this martyrdom caused that many of their brethren should be stirred up to anger, and there began to be contention in the wilderness, and the Lamanites began to hunt the seed of Amulon and his brethren, and began to slay them, and they fled into the wilderness. So yeah, that's what it was. Wow, that's interesting. So it is the seed of the priests of Noah cause many of the Lamanites to suffer death by fire, and it's because of their belief in the salvation of the Lord their God. And then I guess what happens, the reason why that's bad for their seed is because then the other Lamanites are ticked off about it and they hunt them down, which we read in verse 18. So verse 16, it will come to pass that ye shall be afflicted with all manner of diseases because of your iniquities. And I actually don't know when that happens. We'll be on the lookout for that. Yea, and ye shall be smitten on every hand, and shall be driven and scattered to and fro, even as a wild flock is driven by wild and ferocious beasts. And in that day ye shall be hunted, and ye shall be taken by the hand of your enemies, and then ye shall suffer, as I suffer, the pains of death by fire, specifically. Thus God executeth vengeance upon those that destroy his people. O God, receive my soul. And now when Abinadi had said these words, he fell, having suffered death by fire. Yea, having been put to death because he would not deny the commandments of God, having sealed the truth of his words by his death. Death is an interesting thing, man. See, it's like one thing, it's all noble that Abinadi was like, yep, I will literally die for what I'm saying to you. And I feel like it's another thing entirely to actually die for it. I mean, that was the end of Abinadi's game, bro. Like, he was, his work, his job, I don't know about who his family was, or if he had a family, or it's just like, it all came to this. And he was like, yep, I understand that all of that is on the line for what I'm telling you right now in this courtroom. And that's how important it is that I'm ready to just give it up, dude. I'm ready to die for it. And then he did. There wasn't like a miraculous preservation or some angel that comes to save him. He just died. And that's sometimes what happens. There's more to life than we think, I guess. Chapter 18. Going to see you the effects of Abinadi's words that start very small. Start with one man. One single dude. Alma preaches in private. He sets forth the covenant of baptism. This is 147 BC. And we're baptizing people. He sets forth the covenant of baptism and baptizes at the waters of Mormon. He organizes the Church of Christ and ordains priests. And where would he get authority to do that? They support themselves and teach the people. Alma and his people flee from King Noah into the wilderness. And now it came to pass that Alma, who had fled from the servants of King Noah, repented of his sins and iniquities, and went about privately among the people, and began to teach the words of Abinadi. which you could say, I don't know, privately, dude. He wasn't like, hear ye, like a lot of the prophets we've seen so far. Yea, concerning that which was to come, and also concerning the resurrection of the dead and the redemption of the people, which was to be brought to pass through the power and sufferings and death of Christ, not the law of Moses, and his resurrection and ascension into heaven. And as many as would hear his word, he did teach. And he taught them privately, that it might not come to the knowledge of the king, and many did believe his words. So he's like teaching the word unbeknownst to law enforcement. And it came to pass that as many as did believe him did go forth to a place which was called Mormon, having received its name from the king. The king? Who's King Mormon? I don't know.
Ask ChatGPT.
Was he a Lamanite? ChatGPT? I guess we could ask it. Mosiah 18 mentions the place Mormon being named after the king. Is there any other mention of a King Mormon? Is this a Lamanite king? It's either got to be a Lamanite king or like the king of the people that are gathering there, which I don't feel like they would have a king. And if they did, it would be Alma. Yes, but there's an important distinction here. Mosiah 18:4 does not actually say that the place Mormon was named after a king named Mormon. And now it came to pass that as many did believe him, and now the place, and now the place where the waters of Mormon were called the place of Mormon because of the king Mormon. So there was apparently a king Mormon. It doesn't actually say that, but the Book of Mormon gives us very little information about him. The other significant reference is in Alma 5:3, where Alma says, and Alma was their first and chief judge, and also the governor of the people, and the father of Alma, who was called Alma, and was the son of Alma, and was a descendant of Nephi, who is the son of Lehi, who came out of the land of Jerusalem. But that passage doesn't identify King Mormon. The clearest additional discussion comes from I don't think ChatGPT knows what it's talking about here. That whole passage doesn't make any sense. Was he a Lamanite king? We don't know. And there is a reason some people have wondered whether he might have been a Lamanite. Alma was hiding from King Noah in the land of Mormon. Mormon 1:1-5 much later tells us that the prophet historian Mormon was named after the land, not necessarily after this king. But the lands were always named after the kings, or whoever first discovered the land anyway. I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Or I think what it was trying to say is that it didn't necessarily. Yeah, that's what it's saying, is that it's having received its name from the king.
Oh.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's named after the king. It just means that the king gave it to it.
That's so dumb.
Yeah, that's what Scott just said. Yeah, okay. Doesn't matter. Verse 5, now there was in Mormon a fountain of pure water, and Alma resorted thither. There being near the... Now there was in Mormon a fountain of pure water, and Alma resorted thither. There being near the water a thicket of small trees, where he did hide himself in the daytime from the searches of the king. And it came to pass that as many as believed him went thither to hear his words. Thanks, Cody. I appreciate it. Verse 7, and it came to pass that after many days there were a goodly number gathered together at the place of Mormon to hear the words of Alma. Yea, all were gathered together that believed on his word to hear him, and he did teach them and did preach unto them repentance and redemption and faith on the Lord. And it came to pass that he said unto them, behold, here are the waters of Mormon, for thus were they called. And now, as ye are desirous to come into the fold of God, and to be called his people, and are willing to bear one another's burdens, that they may be light, yea, and are willing to mourn with those that mourn, yea, and comfort those that stand in need of comfort, and to stand as witnesses of God at all times, and in all things, and in all places that ye may be in, even until death. This is a lifelong commitment. That ye may be redeemed of God, and be numbered with those of the first resurrection, that ye may have eternal life. Now I say unto you, if this be the desire of your hearts, what have you against being baptized in the name of the Lord, as a witness before him, that ye have entered into a covenant with him, that ye will serve him and keep his commandments, that he may... And why do we serve him and keep his commandments? That he may pour out his spirit more abundantly upon you. I'm just looking back at this baptismal interview. You know, these are the things that matter, dude. See, Jesus's gospel is that you are baptized. And he's like, you have to be baptized. And it's like, well, what do I have to do to be baptized? And these are the things. This is the baptismal interview from Alma anyway. Which means that these are the only things that matter. At least for us right now. Anyway. How did they receive this? Verse 11, and now when the people had heard these words, they clapped their hands for joy and exclaimed, this is the desire of our hearts. And here's where Alma baptizes himself. Sort of. And now it came to pass that Alma took Helam, he being one of the first, and went and stood forth in the water and cried, saying, O Lord, pour out thy spirit upon thy servant, that he may do this work with holiness of heart. Very different prayer than the one we have. And perhaps it's because, again, this was during the time of the law of Moses. Not to say that baptism wasn't necessary during this time, but maybe there was, I don't know, the wording, or, you know, maybe there were things that, I mean, certainly there were things that were different after Christ fulfilled the law. Anyway, verse 13, and when he had said these words, the Spirit of the Lord was upon him, and he said, Helam. Okay, hold on. So verse 12 was like a prayer before the baptism. He like asks for the Spirit. And then the Lord blesses him with the Spirit, and then he gives gives the actual baptismal prayer. Interesting process. And when he had said these words, the Spirit of the Lord was upon him. And then once the Spirit of the Lord was upon him, he said, Helam, I baptize thee, having authority from the Almighty God, as a testimony that ye have entered into a covenant to serve him until you are dead as to the mortal body. And may the Spirit of the Lord be poured out upon you, and may he grant unto you eternal life through the redemption of Christ, whom he has prepared from the foundation of the world. And after Alma had said these words, both Alma and Helam were buried in the water, and they arose and came forth out of the water, rejoicing, being filled with the Spirit. And again, this is just something that has weighed heavily on my mind lately, but it's that authority. It's like, where did Alma get his authority, dude? And the answer that I have always been taught in the church is like, he was a priest. The priests of Noah were priests. They had the authority. And it just, if that's true, which that makes sense to me. And if that's true, it's proof that just because you have priesthood authority, and not only priesthood authority, because everybody knows that, like, oh, just because you have priesthood authority, just because you're ordained to the priesthood doesn't mean that you respect it or can lose the power or whatever. Doesn't mean that you're just automatically good to go. But if that's true, then the same, I feel like, should, not only could, but should be said, or at least considered, about leadership in the church. As high up as you can go. I don't feel like anybody is exempt from imperfection. And I mean, the whole freaking, I don't know where we're at today. I certainly don't think, everybody thinks that, I think that it's like King Noah and his priests. It's not. But to say that that all is well in Zion, like the complete other end of the spectrum, I don't think that's accurate either. Anyway, verse 14. And after Alma had said these words, both Alma and... Oh, I already read that. So they get baptized. Cool. Verse 15, and again Alma took another and went forth a second time into the water and baptized him according to the first, only he did not bury himself again in the water. Which is interesting that it says that, because as soon as I read verse 14, I literally wondered, like, maybe this is just how, maybe Alma was baptized like prior to this, and this is just like how he baptized people, by dunking himself as well. But interesting that it specifically states that he didn't do that from then on, in order to imply that this was like some sort of a baptism for him. Verse 16. And after this manner he did baptize every one that went forth into the place of Mormon. And they were in number about 204 souls, yea, and they were baptized in the waters of Mormon, and were filled with the grace of God. And they were called the Church of God, or the Church of Christ. The Church of Christ in 145 BC, from that time forward. And it came to pass that whosoever was baptized by the power and authority of God was added to this church. And it came to pass that Alma, having authority from God, ordained priests, even one priest to every 50 of their number did he ordain to preach unto them, and to teach them concerning the things pertaining to the kingdom of God. So how many priests is that? We can do some math here, right? We just were told. Weren't we given the number of how many people he baptized?
Yeah.
Or is
200.
Where's that?
Verse 16. 204.
Yeah, so we got like 4 priests, one for every 50. And it came to pass that Alma, having authority from God, okay. And he commanded them that they should teach nothing save it were the things which he had taught, and which had been spoken by the mouth of the holy prophets. Very, very simple. We've got what Abinadi wrote down. Let's just stick to that for now. Yea, even he commanded them that they should preach nothing save it were repentance and faith on the Lord, who had redeemed his people. And he commanded them that there should be no contention one with another, but that they should look forward with one eye, having one faith and one baptism, having their hearts knit together in unity and in love one towards another. And thus he commanded them to preach, and thus they became the children of God. And he commanded them that they should observe the Sabbath day and keep it holy, and also every day they should give thanks to the Lord their God. And he also commanded them that the priests whom he had ordained should labor with their own hands for their support. So no priestcraft, which is another thing I've contemplated a lot. And that, not really for the I don't think that the high leadership of the church is guilty of that. I more think that I wonder if people like lower in the church, even, I don't know. I've wondered if what I'm doing is priestcraft and everything like unto it. Scott said, as a general rule, the best place to lift is where you stand. Concentrating on what others are doing or not doing should not be our focus. Our focus should be on living and sharing the gospel. Yeah. The only reason that I care at all what other people are doing is because those are exactly the things that I have grown up doing. And I have to question the fruits of it based not only on what I see in myself, but elsewhere. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's where this priority should lie. The priority should be on yourself, but I don't think it's like that there needs to be ignoring of what everyone else is doing. And the priests were not to depend on the people for their support, but for their labor they were to receive the grace of God. For their labor they were to receive the grace of God, that they might wax strong in the Spirit, having the knowledge of God, that they might teach with power and authority from God. Okay. So that's what they get paid. That's what it's saying, is that their wages, instead of receiving support from the people, instead of essentially getting like tax money, they were to receive the grace of God, that they might wax strong in the Spirit. They were supposed to be like more spiritually heightened and have the knowledge of God, that they might teach it with power and authority from God. So how do they subsist then? 27, and again, Alma commanded that the people of the church should impart of their substance, every one according to that which he had. If he have more abundantly, he should impart more abundantly. And of him that had but little should be required, and to him that had not should be given. And thus they should impart of their substance, of their own free will and good desires towards God, and to those priests that stood in need, yea, and to every needy, naked soul. And everyone is equal. If you have something that others do not, you do not fit this description. 29, and this he said unto them, having been commanded of God, and they did. And this he said unto them, having been commanded of God to say it. And they did walk uprightly before God, imparting to one another, both temporally and spiritually, according to their needs and their wants. And now it came to pass that all this was done in Mormon, yea, by the waters of Mormon, in the forest that was near the waters of Mormon, yea, the place of Mormon, the waters of Mormon, the forest of Mormon, how beautiful are they! to the eyes of them who there came to the knowledge of their Redeemer. Yea, and how blessed are they, for they shall sing to his praise forever. And you know what, dude? It probably was. It probably was beautiful. This is just another little snapshot, another tiny, tiny snippet, a window, a tiny example of a paradisiacal people. And it probably looked very different than anything we've ever seen today. And I too would remember that. You would just remember that forever. Verse 31, and these things, here's Mormon writing about it 500 years after it happened. 31, and these things were done in the borders of the land, that they might not come to the knowledge of the king. It was secret, dude. They were doing all of it in secret from the government. Consider that. 32, but behold, it came to pass that the king, having discovered a movement among the people, something fishy's going on, sent his servants to watch them. Therefore, on the day that they were assembling themselves together to hear the word of the Lord, they were discovered unto the king. So let's see how the government responds to this. And now the king said that Alma was stirring up the people to rebellion against him. Therefore, he sent his army to destroy them. And that's probably how he publicly and politically, that's how it politically came across to the people. That these were no good guys. This was no paradise. They were the enemy. They were the bad guys. The club that you're not in that is trying to destroy you and destroy what we've got going on here. And the people ate it right up and saw Alma and his people as the enemy. 34, and it came to pass that Alma and the people of the Lord were apprised of the coming of the king's army. Therefore they took their tents and their families and departed into the wilderness. And they were in number about 450 souls. 450. Okay, let me see what we got next here. We got 19. Okay, I'm looking. I think 19 is actually a good place to stop. So I'm going to read 19 and then we'll be done. Okay. Chapter 19. Gideon seeks to slay King Noah. The Lamanites invade the land. King Noah suffers death by fire. Limhi rules as a tributary monarch. And it came to pass that the army of the king returned, having searched in vain for the people of the Lord. So they didn't find him because the Lord told them to get out, and they did. And now behold, the forces of the king were small, having been reduced, and there began to be a division among the remainder of the people. A division among the remainder of the king's people. And the lesser part began to breathe out threatenings against the king. And there began to be a great contention among them. And now there was a man among them whose name was Gideon. And he being a strong man and an enemy to the king, therefore he drew his sword and swore in his wrath that he would slay the king. And I swear, we have heard of Gideon before this. I could have sworn he was like tight with the king. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to go back and look for it, but I feel like Gideon was like one of the king's right-hand man. I could just be totally making that up. At any rate, he was a big, strong dude, and he didn't like the king. And he was like, I'm going to kill him. An assassin, by the way. We hear more about him later. Oh, Gideon, okay. But yeah, I mean, think about that, dude. How do we treat people that draw forth their sword today and swear in our wrath that they're going to kill the king? Dangerous game, Gideon. And it came to pass that he fought with the king. And when the king saw that he was about to overpower him, he fled and ran and got upon the tower which was near the temple. I love this. And Gideon pursued after him, and was about to get upon the tower to slay the king. And the king cast his eyes round about towards the land of Shemlon, and behold, the army of the Lamanites were within the borders of the land. And now the king cried out in the anguish of his soul, saying, Gideon, spare me, for the Lamanites are upon us, and they will destroy us. Yea, they will destroy my people. And Mormon, dude, listen to Mormon narrate this. Now the king was not so much concerned about his people as he was about his own life. He couldn't have cared less about his people. He just wanted to not die. Nevertheless, Gideon did spare his life. And the king commanded the people that they should flee before the Lamanites, and he himself did go before them. And the king commanded the people that they should flee before the Lamanites. Let's see. That they should flee. Okay, run away. Run away. Everybody just run away. And he himself did go before them, and they did flee into the wilderness with their women and their children. And here we see another real beta move from King Noah. And it came to pass that the Lamanites did pursue them and did overtake them and began to slay them. Now it came to pass that the king commanded them that all the men should leave their wives and their children and flee before the Lamanites. That's what's slowing us down, the women and children. Just abandon them. Now there were many that would not leave them, but had rather stay and perish with them. And the rest left their wives and their children and fled. And it came to pass that those who tarried with their wives and their children caused that their fair daughters should stand forth and plead with the Lamanites that they would not slay them. And it came to pass that the Lamanites had compassion on them, for they were charmed with the beauty of their women. Interesting point to make, but that, I mean, as weird and as trivial as that sounds, that is literally the difference between the death and life of these Nephite people. Verse 15, therefore the Lamanites did spare their lives and took them captives and carried them back to the land of Nephi and granted unto them that they might possess the land under the conditions that they would deliver up King Noah into the hands of the Lamanites and deliver up their property, even 1/2 of all they possessed, 1/2 of their gold and their silver and all their precious things, and thus they should pay tribute to the king of the Lamanites from year to year, a 50% tax. And we need King Noah. Verse 16, and now there was one of the sons of the king among those that were taken captive, whose name was Limhi, King Noah's son. And now Limhi was desirous that his father should not be destroyed. Nevertheless, Limhi was not ignorant of the iniquities of his father, he himself being a just man. See, dude, I love Limhi. He realizes how stupid his dad is, but he's still just like, dude, he's my dad, though. Like, I don't want him to die. And here they are. They're like, dude, you have to give us King Noah. Verse 18, and it came to pass that Gideon sent men into the wilderness secretly to search for the king and those that were with him. And it came to pass that they met the people in the wilderness, all save the king and his priests. So now we've arrived at group 2, who did leave their wives and children, and they're like, yeah, they're all there except for, conveniently, the king and his priests. They're the only ones that are still missing now. Let's see how they feel about their choice to leave their women and children. Now they had sworn in their hearts that they would return to the land of Nephi. And if their wives and their children were slain, and also those that had tarried with them, that they would seek revenge and also perish with them. Which is, pretty noble. It's better than, the best would have been to just stick with them, but this is a decent plan B. And the king commanded them that they should not return. Don't go back. They're all feeling this immense regret, and King Noah and his priests literally doubled down on this. They're like, don't go back and die with them. Just get out, dude. You're gonna go die. And the king commanded them that they should not return, and they were angry with the king, and caused that he should suffer even unto death by fire. They're like, you're the doofus that convinced us this was a good idea in the first place, dude. And at that point, they had had enough of the king, and they just torched him. But what about the priests? And they were about to take the priests also and put them to death, and they fled before them. So the priests just took off further into the wilderness. And it came to pass that they were about to return to the land of Nephi, and they met the men of Gideon. This is group 2 we're talking about, not the priests. And the men of Gideon told them of all that had happened to their wives and their children, and that the Lamanites had granted unto them that they might possess the land by paying a tribute to the Lamanites of 1/2 of all they possessed. And the people told the men of Gideon that they had slain the king, and his priests had fled from them further into the wilderness. Yeah, we burned the king, but his advisors, his administration kept going. Verse 24, and it came to pass that after they had ended the ceremony, that they returned to the land of Nephi, rejoicing because their wives and their children were not slain. And they told Gideon what they had done to the king. I always imagine that as a very, very awkward reunion. And they're like, hey, we burned King Noah, though. Like, he was the one that kind of, made it happen. I can't imagine that was good enough restitution. But, I mean, I guess it was. I don't know. 25, and it came to pass that the king of the Lamanites made an oath unto them, that his people should not slay them. So we've got some peace now, but they're being taxed out of their minds. 26, and also Limhi, being the son of the king, having the kingdom conferred upon him by the people, made oath unto the king of the Lamanites that this people should pay tribute unto him, even 1/2 of all they possessed. So Limhi's the new king. And it came to pass that Limhi began to establish the kingdom and to establish peace among his people. And the king of the Lamanites set guards round about the land, that he might keep the people of Limhi in the land, that they might not depart into the wilderness. And he did support his guards out of the tribute which he did receive from the Nephites. So they've got this border, and they're not letting anybody out of the land unless, they say so. And they're supporting this security with the very taxes from the people that they're guarding. And now King Limhi did have continual peace in his kingdom for the space of 2 years, that the Lamanites did not molest them nor seek to destroy them. So that's, any parallels to the condition of King Limhi and our situation today? Just bullet pointing this. King Limhi is, first bullet point, continual peace. They have peace. There is peace in his kingdom. But within that peace, there's a horrible tax of half their stuff, and there's this security, this surveillance, I should say. That's a better word. This intense surveillance being supported by the tax. And because of these things, despite them having peace, they still desire to be delivered. They still find themselves in bondage, as if to say that you can have peace and be in terrible bondage. The two can exist, they can coexist, and you can still, and probably would desire that you be delivered as you recognize the bondage that you're in. Not saying that's how it is. Just saying that's my opinion, and it's food for thought. So we've got about like 3 more chapters before we're done with the flashback. So we're gonna stop there. Because remember, I will say before I wrap it up here that Limhi, it's like King Limhi. This is not the first we've heard from King Limhi. King Limhi, if you'll remember, was the king who ran into Ammon at the very start of this story. All the way back in chapter 8 or 7 through 8. And he was the king that came out with his guards and found Ammon, and he bound Ammon up and put him in prison. He was like, "What the heck are you doing here?" And then Ammon's like, "I'm from Zarahemla," and Limhi was like, "Oh, this is good news. We're finally going to be free." But before we made plans to get how to get back to Zarahemla and get freed from this state of bondage, we had to do the flashback first. Okay, so that's where we've been this whole time, is this flashback. How did Limhi get to this point? And he's telling Ammon this story that we've been reading for the last like 12 chapters. And we're about to get back to present day. So yeah, we'll pick it up at chapter 20 in the next one.